volume for hire vehicle drivers. I'll similarly go through a little bit of background, the analysis that we did, and the proposal and what we expect the proposal to result in. Next slide. So as a little bit of background on the driver pay rules, they were implemented in 2009 following a TLC Commission study by 2 labor economists, city council legislation, and then TLC rulemaking. It requires a minimum per trip payment for trips that are dispatched by the high volume companies, currently 2 high volume companies, Lyft and Uber. And that minimum per trip payment is based on trip time, trip distance, and the time spent that the time that drivers working for that company spend on trips versus spend not on a trip, and the utilization rate. So these rates have already been increased to account for inflation in 2020 and in early 2022, and we're proposing our additional increases on top of that. Next slide. So our proposal to account for recent inflation and increases in driver expenses would increase the per minute rate by 7.42%, and that's just to account for general inflation since the last increase. And then on the per mile side, increase by 23.93%, and that's specifically geared towards the per mile rate, which is intended to account for driver expenses. So this is looking at changes in driver expenses since the rates were initially analyzed in 2018. And it would, an additional component of the proposal would be to require high volume companies to stay within a utilization rate range of 52% to 64% to ensure that drivers receive a sufficient number of trips, because this is only a per trip payment. So if a company were to provide drivers 0 trips, they would have to pay $0. So we want to make sure that they're actually getting drivers trips, so that the trips that are actually done are paid according to the standard. Next slide. So the impacts of the proposal, just using a sample trip of 30 minutes and 7.5 miles, the new rates would require a minimum pay of $27.15 to the driver for that trip. So this is up more than $4 from the original rates that were put into effect in 2019, and up more than $2.50 from the current rates. And as a reminder, this remains only a minimum driver pay standard. The companies can continue to exceed that standard if they choose to do so. And this is only relating to driver pay, so this does not directly impact passenger fares. The companies can continue to decide how much to charge passengers and how much of the money charged to passengers actually goes to drivers. Next slide. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions you want.
Okay, thank you.